Indian High Commissioner to Ottawa as a person of interest in a murder investigation that surrounded Hardeep Singh Nijjar, the Khalistani extremist who was killed in Vancouver more than a year ago. And then, of course, Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, stood up in the floor of the Parliament there in Canada and made these unprecedented allegations. It's been over a year since he made those allegations. Not a shred of evidence, documentary or otherwise, has been provided to India. India has now decided to withdraw the High Commissioner, Sanjeev Kumar Verma, who's been named as a person of interest in this case, as well as other targeted diplomats and officials. India has put out a very, very strongly worded statement just about half an hour ago saying that India has no faith in the current Canadian government under Justin Trudeau. The Canadian charge d'affaires, Stephen Wheeler, was in fact summoned to the MEA, and he was given a dressing down for what the Indian government believes is blatant and naked vote bank politics that's being indulged by the Trudeau government. Mr. Wheeler came out and then spoke to the waiting press, and he said that Canada has given evidence to New Delhi, and New Delhi now has to act against what Canada believes is a state-sponsored killing of a Canadian national. But, like I said, the three-member committee that was formed to look specifically into these allegations has also said that so far there's been no evidence provided by the Canadians. But in the meanwhile, this unprecedented step that India has taken, it has never withdrawn an ambassador or a high commissioner from a Western country, not certainly in the last 20 or 30 years. For the first time from one of the Western countries, India has decided to withdraw its High Commissioner because he has been named as a person of interest in a murder investigation. Let's listen in to Stuart Wheeler, who is the charge d'affaires of the Canadian government. He was summoned to the MEA and given this note verbal just half an hour ago, where it was clearly told to him to convey to the Canadian government that India is withdrawing its High Commissioner to Ottawa.
The government of Canada has done what India has long been asking for. Canada has provided credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and a murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Now it is time for India to live up to what it said it would do and look into those allegations. It is in the interest of both our countries and the peoples of our countries to get to the bottom of this. Canada stands ready to cooperate with India.
All right, as of today, the only country from where India has withdrawn its High Commissioner is Pakistan. And this, of course, happened on the back of the Article 370 abrogation that happened 5 years ago in 2019. Both countries do not have High Commissioners in their respective capitals. But never in the recent past, not certainly in the last 20, 30 years, has India withdrawn a High Commissioner from a Western country, a country that is supposedly part of the Five Eyes intelligence network. But this is well and truly the nadir of the relationship between India and Canada. The question is, will Canada follow reciprocity? Will Canada also withdraw its ambassador from New Delhi? And more importantly, will India decide to send a replacement instead of Sanjay Kumar Verma? Or is India going to leave the position of High Commissioner vacant till the Trudeau government demits office? Let's try and put all of those questions. Joining us full panel tonight here on the program, Dean Baxendale is a senior journalist joining us live from Toronto. Sameer Kaushal, again senior journalist, joining us from British Columbia. Professor Brahma Chalani, strategic affairs expert, and Sushant Sareen, senior fellow with the Observer Research Foundation. Ambassador G. Parsati, former Indian diplomat, is also joining us. Sushant, let me start with you first. This is fairly unprecedented. We have recalled High Commissioners from Pakistan in the past, but I can't think of a Western country, even at the height of the Devyani Khobragade incident that happened more than 10 years ago. I think the ambassadors were still very much there, even though it's a low point in the relationship with America. But with any other Western country, I can't think of an instance where India has recalled its ambassador.
Zaka, on a lighter note, there's a German friend of mine who wrote a book on ISI, whose tagline is Pakistan is everywhere. So apparently Pakistan is also in Canada these days. But aside of that, look, here is the thing. Once the High Commissioner's name had been listed out as a person of interest, I don't think we were left with any option but to withdraw him. Have we downgraded our relations with Canada? I don't think that's very clear as of now. Will we insist that just as we have withdrawn our diplomats from Canada, which means those posts are going to be unmanned, the Canadians will also have to, cut down their diplomatic staff in India further from what they've already done or what they've been asked to do? Will there be any other punitive measures that will be taken? That is one part of it. The second part of it is the language which has been used, and I don't remember the government of India even using such strong language against Pakistan. Ambassador Parthasarathi is out here, he might bear me out. We've never targeted an individual in Pakistan. We've never personalized it, but this time it's become very personalized against Trudeau and his cabal and his cronies. So we are directly targeting him now, and we are calling him out for whatever he has been doing. So that's the second thing, which is quite unprecedented, if you ask me. Third, the language again. Using the word again, not used by diplomats, the word regime for the government in Canada. I don't remember the government of India ever having used this kind of language, at least against a Western government, or for that matter, most other governments. We always call it the government of the that particular country. So that is the third. And so now it remains to be seen what are the other punitive measures that will be taken. The fact that you say that you reserve the right means nothing. You can be reserving as many rights as you want to unless you are going to exercise some of those rights. And then there is the whole question of how does this spat between India and Canada also impact on our relationship with some of the other countries which are very close to Canada, the US in particular. Is the Canadians doing this all on their own behalf? Of course, there is a domestic political angle in Canada, but what is the American role in this going to be? They've also played a very dubious role. And finally, last point, Zaka, while I can understand the sensitivities of countries that other countries are coming and targeting some citizens or allegedly targeting people in their country, but the question also needs to be asked to these countries. Why are they harboring terrorists who are attacking India? On what basis are they harboring them? There is more than adequate evidence and more than irrefutable evidence that has been given to the Canadians of these lowlifes and toilet cleaners being involved in these kind of criminal activity. What have the Canadians done about it?
Okay, so let me ask Dean Baxendale that. What's the view from Toronto? Because it seems like Mr. Trudeau, for whatever vote bank politics, is a statement from the MEA put out some time back, suggests that he's trying to do this to appease a certain vote bank. But even that doesn't seem to explain it fully because A, this seems like scorched earth politics. B, as of today, I think his party is trailing the Conservatives by anywhere between 15 to 20 points. It would be a miracle if his party wins the next election. What is he trying to achieve? He's put an important bilateral relationship on the line. For what? To save a few elements who are involved in extremist and terrorist activities? I mean, is that all this relationship is worth for Mr. Trudeau?
Well, I certainly don't think that is all this relationship is worth to Trudeau or the Liberal government. I think it's important to recognize that Canada and India have enjoyed a very strong relationship for many decades. However, it has been strained certainly by the actions of Justin Trudeau, specifically when he called out the Indian government in Parliament with respect to the murder of Nijjar and his obviously his relationship with the Khalistani separatist movement as espoused by the Indian government and others. So this has created great tension, as we know. I think this aspect, though, that we've created a situation where it's endangering the High Commissioner's lives, etc. I'm not sure where this narrative is coming from, but I would say that working with India as an important ally in a world strained by China, Russia, Iran in terms of threat theaters and military action, I think it would behoove us all to get together and work in a unified way to address this specific issue.
If you were to look at the statement put out by the MEA, the fact that a sitting High Commissioner, a career diplomat, by the way, was put as a person of interest in a murder investigation, naturally the government of India is worried for his safety, worried for his security, because it has come to the conclusion that he's not safe in a country where he has been named as a person of interest in a murder investigation. And therefore, the best recourse or the best action that the MEA has taken is to withdraw the ambassador, because they don't trust the intent of the Trudeau government by naming the High Commissioner and other diplomats as persons of interest in a murder investigation. I can still understand that there might be agents, there might be undercover agents. I think one of whose cover was blown as CC1, person who's been identified. But that's not the same thing as putting a career diplomat who's got 30 years of diplomatic service as a person of interest in a murder investigation. It makes no sense.
Well, listen, I'm not going to get into the details or of this specific, situation regarding the Canadian government ostensibly saying, hey, this person is a person of interest in an investigation. Should that have been handled diplomatically behind the scenes? I believe that the Canadian government has certainly engaged the Indian government on this discussion. I think it's very complex, as we all know. And whether or not India participated or had any involvement with the extrajudicial murder of Nijjar here in Canada is still a question of debate, but certainly the American intelligence has shared such information. I don't think it does anything, though, to help the relationship. Certainly inflames it. And yes, I think that the withdrawal of the of the High Commissioner in this particular case is probably warranted. And let's hope, though, that they can get back together and have a serious discussion on how we resolve this.
Ambassador Parthasarathy, now the question that arises is, will India, because diplomacy is based on reciprocity, will India then ask Canada to withdraw its High Commissioner, Mr. Mackay, from Delhi? Two, does India replace Mr. Verma with some other diplomat to become the next High Commissioner to Canada? Or does India leave that post completely vacant? Because you look at the MEA statement, it says they don't trust the Trudeau government to ensure the safety and security of these diplomats named in this as persons of interest, including the High Commissioner. So would that be sending out a signal to the Trudeau government that the government of India thinks they are doing this for very partisan reasons, whatever those politics are? But even those partisan reasons don't add up. It doesn't make the position of the High Commissioner of India any more safe.
Look, I look at it this way, that we've always had an extremely good relationship with Canada. In fact, sometimes when they have agreed with our disagreement with their American neighbors even. I think the Canadian Prime Minister is getting mentally unstable because he is facing up with the fact that the next elections, the people of Canada will give him a big boot. And therefore, he has to divert attention to make himself a big hero before the people of Canada. So I think we should be very, very clear. Now, if as a diplomat who has been through these things in places like Pakistan, I will tell you that come what may, as long as Trudeau is there, give him back tit for tat. Ask him to ask his ambassador to pack up and leave within 24 hours. That is the real diplomatic action. And then, as with in dealing with this whole thing, we wait for the people of Canada to throw him out.
But Ambassador,
there is no question. I would go a step further. There is no question of our not throwing him out. And if they try to play further, we'll throw the whole entire Canadian embassy out. That is what is the action call, and we don't need diplomatic relations with a prime minister, with a country whose prime minister we regard as a loony.
So Ambassador Parthasarathy,
this is dramatics to the people of Canada to divert attention from real issues where he knows he will be trounced.
Ambassador Parthasarathy says that we should sever all diplomatic ties with Canada. Professor Brahma Chalani is also on the broadcast. Professor Chalani, would you go so far as doing that? Because again, I come back to the point that was made that
I have not said we ended all diplomatic relations. I've said throughout their ambassador.
All right, send back their ambassador. But Professor Jalani, the question is, in September of 2023, Justin Trudeau stood up in the Parliament in Canada and made very, very severe allegations against the government of India and against government officials of the government of India. And yet, it's been over a year. There's a 3-member committee that's been appointed, which, by the way, is going to the US as we speak. Tomorrow, they're going to go to the US. They're going to meet with US officials on the progress of the case against the other Khalistani extremist, which is Pannu. And so far, this committee has not been given anything by way of evidence to substantiate Mr. Trudeau's claims.
Zaka, there's several things here. First, Trudeau made his allegation on the basis of scratchy intelligence that the Biden administration shared with Canada. So behind Trudeau's allegation was the Biden administration. Second, as you rightly point out, that it's been more than a year since Trudeau made that allegation. So what has happened now that prompted Canada to name the Indian High Commissioner and some other Indian diplomats as persons of interest? It has happened at a time when pressure is growing on Trudeau at home to resign. He's a deeply unpopular leader in Canada. So that is the troubling aspect, whether domestic politics is influencing Trudeau's policy towards India. But there's a larger issue here, which we should not ignore, which is at the root of this ugly spat between Canada and India is Canada's tolerance of Sikh separatist activity. This tolerance of Sikh separatist activity is reopening old wounds in India that go back to the Air India bombing of 1985 that killed all 329 people on board. Canada did not bring one single person to justice for that bombing. They took 2 decades to set up a commission of inquiry because successive Indian governments let Canada off the hook. Today, all these questions, issues are coming back. They're back in the national debate in India. The old wounds are being reopened. The fact that the US and Canada are shielding and sheltering Sikh extremists that are making terrorist threats against India from Canadian and American soil makes India wonder as to what the larger diplomatic game is. And I think that the developments of the last 24 hours, from Canada's note coming to India, and India then withdrawing its High Commissioner and the other diplomats who have been named as persons of interest, means that this relationship, which was already at its lowest point before these latest developments, that relationship is going to get further strained, which means that only after the new Canadian government takes office next year, after the elections are held in Canada, can the efforts to repair this relationship begin.
So, Samir Kaushal, help us try and understand this from, all right, let me go back to Mr. Baxendale. This whole idea that Trudeau is doing this to appeal to a certain vote bank, you could make sense of it till the NDP was supporting his government, until he was dependent on Jagmeet Singh. Now, Jagmeet Singh has withdrawn support from this government. There is no plausible way that Sikh vote bank or a section of the Sikh vote bank is going to suddenly vote Liberal just because Mr. Trudeau has named the Indian High Commissioner as a person of interest. I'm not able to make sense of the domestic politics as the reason for why Mr. Trudeau has done this, or his government has decided to name the Indian High Commissioner, who I keep stressing is a career diplomat. He's not someone who is involved in espionage activities. He's not a police officer. He's not, somebody who has had a career in the agencies here in India. He is an IFS officer who's been a diplomat all his life. What is the domestic political connotation here? What's the domestic political sort of calculation that's been made that Mr. Trudeau thinks would work out well for him and his party next year?
Well, that is the $1 million question. Really, there is nothing that at this particular point in juncture in time that seems to be able to save this government. They're 21 points behind in the polls. They may well come in third, perhaps even fourth in the next election. if he remains leader of the party. Having said that, diaspora politics here in Canada, if you look at the voting bloc of Sikh MPs that are aligned on this issue of both the Conservative NDP and the Liberal government, they don't vote for the government. They vote in tandem with each other, specifically around the issues that as they see them within their various communities and their potential support for a Palestinian state. And so I think these politics have been here in Canada for such a long time. It's very dangerous that political parties are playing with this dynamic, given the backdrop, given the fact that we're in the middle of a foreign interference committee, which will, by the way, speak to a number of elements of Indian foreign interference, Pakistani foreign interference, of course, Russia, Iran, but primarily China. And we need to get a hold of this. We need to work with our allies. This is doing nothing to support our strong relationship and future relationship with a sovereign and democratic state like India.
So, Shant, what this also means, what Mr. Baxendale has said, is that whether it is Sikh MPs in the Conservative Party, the NDP, or in the Liberal Party, they're all aligned on the Khalistan issue in one way. So even if the Conservative Party were to come to power in next year's elections, it doesn't automatically mean that they will repair ties with India, because there will be a section within the Conservative caucuses or the Conservative Parliamentary Party who would be aligned on the Khalistan issue.
So, Zaka, clearly this relationship has been poisoned, and I don't think there's any easy way of coming back to what it was maybe a few years back, before Trudeau's Bollywood-type tamasha visit in 2018. Where he thought, white man coming, dancing in Indian robes will sweep the Indians off their feet and make him loved out here. He made an ass of himself, but that's besides the point. But the fact of the matter remains, this relationship is going downhill very fast. And just because there's a change of government, I don't think it's going to come back on the rails as easily as many people think it will happen. Number one. Number two, I need to challenge one of the statements which the Canadian gentleman made when he says there are no clear threats to Indian diplomats or their lives are not in danger. I wonder how he can say that, because there are clear threats which are made virtually every day. There are death threats which are made to these guys. There are public meetings in which the latest posters which are doing the round or the latest videos which are doing the round is that you put the picture of the High Commissioner and you show somebody firing bullets in it. Now, please tell me, by Canadian laws, would you allow this to happen if it was the picture of an American diplomat or the American president? What action would you be taking? And finally, Zaka, on this whole foreign interference thing, the Liberal Party, or whichever this guy's party is, they've been trying to brush this under the carpet for the longest, right? Especially on the Chinese allegations. Now, one is that, look, the Indian diplomats also, try and talk to the diaspora, have meetings with the diaspora. That's not interfering in Canadian politics, in domestic politics. But what the Canadians have been doing in India, let's have an inquiry commission on that. Let's talk about their interference in India, how they have been pandering to these toilet cleaners and these terrorists who they import then from India to spoil their own country. They are most welcome to ruin their own country. But when that starts having a fallout on me in the form of transnational crime, in the form of narcotics trafficking, in the form of gun running, and in the form of this very pernicious propaganda of separatism, then obviously I will have to respond to it. I will react to it. I am not going to turn the other cheek. That time is long gone. It's not the 80s when, the white man was the superior guy and everybody was kowtowing. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen anymore. That Justin Trudeau's father can say that because India is not deferential enough to the Queen of England, that is why he will not extradite some of these people. I'm sorry, that time is gone.
So let me ask Mr. Baxendale. I'm not sure if you've seen that video of the High Commissioner's poster and people sort of spraying bullets into it. Surely you wouldn't say that, A, that is acceptable in any democratic society and in any country which has the rule of law, because rule of law is a line that Mr. Trudeau stressed again and again in his speech that he made in Parliament last year, making those allegations against Government of India officials. So surely you would appreciate that having a High Commissioner or an ambassador's poster and having bullets sprayed on it is not exactly an advertisement for rule of law, number one. Number two, after having seen that, how can you conscientiously say, Mr. Baxendale, that there was no threat to the life of the ambassador?
So first of all, I didn't say that there's no threat specifically, and it's clear that yes, I've seen the videos, and as a matter of fact, I've commented publicly on this rather egregious this is hate speech, this is destructive speech, and nobody within the Indian government should have to withstand such such an assault from separatists and potential thugs. And the government of Canada should have taken action, and as I've stated publicly before, in bringing those people, charges should be laid against people for putting forward these ideas to assault somebody from a government. So I never said that I didn't think that he was. Diplomats are under threat all the time. This particular assault is rather egregious. I agree with that 100%.
So let me ask Ambassador Parsati, how much do you think this will have a knock-on effect on India's relationship with the United States, with the UK, with Australia, where also there is Khalistani politics at play? Do you think those relationships are sufficiently insulated from the India-Canada relationship, or will this have a knock-on effect on the other partnerships that India has with some of these notable Western countries?
No, look. This Sikh community in India is peaceful and happy. You have these jokers in advanced countries who want to be big news, supportive of a cause which no longer exists in India. After all, Punjab has gone through democratic elections. So that's very clear that you do have this group. And there is often a dilemma that governments have, but about their constituting a vote bank and having votes, and therefore wanting to tolerate what they do. Sure, if it's around to carry a few flags around and talk of their cause, fine. But a democratic country encouraging them to disintegrate a fellow democracy miles away, that's their cause, speaks very poorly of young Trudeau. I can say that I'm 80 years old, he's much younger than I am. That perhaps be his father's age. Now, in these circumstances, I think what we need to do is behave in a very measured manner, take reciprocal action, and then let's Trudeau stew before his electorate. But we should make it very clear that normal diplomatic relations, ties, and other rigmarole which go along with diplomacy will not be available.
Okay.
And there is certainly, I would really expel their ambassador.
Let me ask Professor Chalani, I'll give you the final word as we close this segment. So, like I said, a high-level committee that was formed in the aftermath of the US allegations against Government of India officials for the threats to Pannu, that committee is going to go to Washington tomorrow. And we're given to understand that they'll be meeting with some officials from the Justice Department as well as from the State Department for some more information. And that committee so far has maintained that as far as Mr. Trudeau's allegations are concerned, as far as Canada's allegations are concerned, no evidence has been shared with that committee or with anyone else in Government of India to back up those allegations. But Mr. Stuart Wheeler, who is the Canadian Chargé d'Affaires, who was summoned today at the MEA, came out and gave a soundbite saying that Canada has given evidence to India. Now it's up to India to act. Why are they? I mean, let's for a moment, even if, let's say, Mr. Wheeler, if we were to take Mr. Wheeler at face value, then all that Canada needs to do is to put out that evidence in the public domain and say, this is the evidence that we have shared, and the Government of India is not taking any action.
The Indian government said today that not a shred of evidence has been shared with India. Now look at both these killings that have happened, or one killing in Canada and one alleged plot against the New York-based Sikh militant. In British Columbia, Canada, gang warfare among Sikh militants is a reality that troubles the British Columbia police. There have been a number of killings of Sikh militants by Sikhs in this gang warfare. Now, what made Mr. Nijjar's killing? Nijjar was a man who was designated as a terrorist in India. But before Trudeau made his allegation public in the Canadian Parliament, not many people in India knew about Mr. Nijjar. The fact is that this guy, Nijjar, could have also been a victim of gang warfare. After Mr. Nijjar's killing, there were a couple of other killings of Sikh militants in British Columbia, which the police clearly blamed on gang warfare. As far as the US alleged plot against Mr. Pannun is concerned, the allegation is even more absurd. According to the American account, if you go by the American account, the Indians are so incompetent that to eliminate Mr. Pannun, one official of the Indian government hired an intermediary who then, through long distance, through remote connection, was trying to hire a killer in the U.S. And the killer that he hired turned out to be a U.S. police officer. And look at the naivety that they assign to this entire plot, as if the Indians are so incompetent that if they wanted to kill Mr. Pannun, that they are so incompetent to execute a plot. Now, given that background, there seems to be more to this Canadian-US, especially the Canadian Trudeau-Biden administration effort to pin blame on India.
All right.
And I think this forming the committee that India has done in the case of the Pannun case, that committee establishment by itself has sent a message to Biden administration that its allegation against India is an allegation that lacks substance, that India is trying to get to the bottom of it. But like in the case of Canada, India is asking the US to provide some evidence that can be investigated.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Professor Chalani, Ambassador Parthasarathy, Sushant Sareen, and Mr. Baxendale for joining us with what is clearly a huge story in the diplomatic world. All right, there's been a lot of controversy recently around the Tirupati Ladoo story. The matter went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered a special investigation team. It appointed 2 members of the CBI, 2 members of the State Police, and 1 official from the FSSAI. The court was not particularly happy about the role of the state government or the jumping of the gun by the Chief Minister in particular to come to the conclusion that there was adulterated ghee that was used. Now, this SIT will sit and probe whether adulterated ghee was used, and if at all, then who needs to be held accountable. I sat down earlier today with Nara Lokesh. He's the Minister for Information and Technology, Electronics and Communication and Education, also the son of the Chief Minister, Mr.Nara Chandrababu Naidu. This is his first sit-down interview to any national news channel after this controversy broke out. I spoke to him about this as well as a host of other issues. Here is that interview with Nara Lokesh. Well, it's not an easy job to run a state these days, and particularly if it's a new state vying to compete for investments with the likes of a Karnataka or a Tamil Nadu or even a Telangana. Joining me now is the Minister for IT, Communications and Education in the state government of Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Nara Lokesh. Thank you very much for speaking with us in this exclusive interview to CNN News 18.
Well, thank you for having me.
So it's been over 100 days since you came to power and you became Minister for IT, Communications, Electronics. How has this stint in ministership been? It's been an action-packed 100 days, lots of issues to talk about.
I mean, Mr. Naidu's government is always action-packed.
I mean, especially this time around, he's quite clear that we need to deliver the speed of doing business. So a lot of orientation, a lot of direction from him. And we're all a young team. If you look at it, 17 first-time ministers, 88 out of the 164 MLAs are first-time MLAs. So a lot of energy and a lot of action will be seen now in Andhra Pradesh.
You've been going out of your way wooing companies like Foxconn, Brookfield Corporation, Suzlon, all who have expressed an interest in investing in Andhra Pradesh. How easy or difficult is it to get investors to a relatively new state, and especially when you're competing against the likes of a Bangalore or a Hyderabad or even a Chennai?
I mean, we have a brand. The brand name is called Chandrababu Naidu.
Okay.
So once Mr. Naidu's government came back to power in Andhra Pradesh, there's been renewed interest in the state, a lot of excitement. So all the names that you've read, they're all now raring to go. And Mr. Naidu himself has made certain commitments as far as the renewable energy is concerned at the RE Invest Summit, where 72 gigawatts will be done in 5 years. And that's a bold statement and a vision that we will go about delivering on that. And in the past, he's done that. He's taken every district with a clear sectoral focus, and he's delivered on it. I mean, Kia came to Anantapur, which was one of India's most backward districts.
Yeah.
The entire renewable energy projects to Kurnool. The electronics manufacturing to Chittoor and Kadapa. Like that, we have very clear focus on our districts where we want to bring in investments and create the entire ecosystem. So not only can the businesses survive, but thrive over the next century.
But specifically with regards to your department, information technology, there was a time when people were competing with each other for software companies. In this day and age of AI, when everybody's saying, AI will take away software jobs, a new state like yours, what is the pitch that you make to companies?
Well, fundamentally, if you look at it, every industrial revolution has created more jobs than the past. That's number one. AI will transform the kind of jobs.
Okay.
So, and as an HRD minister, my job is to make sure that I create the next generation leaders and workforce. That's one. Two, Hyderabad has been the benefactor of Y2K. Boom. I believe Andhra Pradesh can be the benefactor of the entire AI revolution. So AI coming and marrying the entire machine learning bit, the quantum computing bit. I think we can do a lot of work in that sector, and we can leapfrog compared to the other states. And Andhra, if you look at it, inherently has amazing engineering talent. If you go globally anywhere, in the IT sector, a lot of Andhrites are already there. In fact, even Telanganites, for that matter. So we have a very important role to play in that sense. So human capital is there. Then you have a government which is going to deliver on speed of doing business. I think it's a lethal combination.
But when you have like Electronic City in Bangalore, the high-tech city in Hyderabad, what does Amravati offer?
Amravati is the next generation city. If you look at it, that's where you have all the world-class institutions that have already set up shop, and now they're going to create, they're churning out next generation leaders, number one. Number two, Amravati can be India's sandbox, because India has not done a greenfield city at this scale. And it's not just about a capital. We want it to be a knowledge city. So a lot of work is actually going in terms of what technologies can be used to sort of leapfrog the entire curve. And that's what I think Amravati can offer, not only to India, but to the world.
But tell me, the Chief Minister had talked about decentralization of development. He had talked about ensuring district-specific sort of progress, petrochemical corridor in Godavari, pharma hub in North Andhra Pradesh, financial capital in Vizag, and so on. What would you say to people who say that these are tall promises, you're not going to realize them, certainly not going to realize them in 5 years?
Well, we've done it in the last 5 years of our tenure. Between 14 to 19, Kia came to Anantapur. Who ever thought that? So that's our mobility valley. The entire renewable energy is going to come to Kurnool, where the pump storage hydro projects are actually coming up. The entire electronics manufacturing cluster is between Chittoor and Kadapa and parts of Nellore. If you look at it, we manufacture 50% of India's air conditioning. The world's largest TV panel manufacturer, TCL, calls Tirupati its home. So we already have the key ingredients. Aqua, we are number one in the country. Palm oil, we are number one. Pharma, we already have a hub. We just want to build the world's largest pharma hub. So we have all the key ingredients in place. All we needed is a catalyst, and that catalyst is called Chandrababu Naidu. And we can accelerate our growth in that sense.
Talking about the Chief Minister, I believe today he's made an announcement for the establishment of a Ratan Tata Innovation Hub. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So if you look at it, there's a huge opportunities for MSMEs. And the biggest challenge that we struggle is lack of handholding. In each district, if you followed each of my answer, I keep talking about ecosystem. That's very, very important. Politically, I would like to take certain companies in different directions, but I don't think it's right. We have to build robust ecosystems, and that robust ecosystems can create millions of jobs in the MSME space. That's where, after the passing of Ratan Tata ji, Mr. Naidu said, let's do this, where we can focus on MSMEs, train them, guide them, and get the best of entrepreneurs in India, the first generation, second generation, to come handle them, nurture them, mentor them, whilst the state, with central government support, can actually fund these MSME startups. And that's why we're going to do these labs.
But you talk about, private investment and all of these big ideas and, private investment sort of crowding in. But the public debt of Andhra Pradesh in 2019-20 was 31.02%. In 23-24, it's climbed up to 33.32%. It reflects a worsening fiscal situation in the state. You have asked for a financial package from the centre. Nothing concrete has been announced yet in terms of being able to reduce this fiscal deficit. What would you say to people who are investors who may be concerned about the rising level of public debt in your state?
I mean, this is the exact situation that the erstwhile state was in 95 when Mr. Naidu became the chief minister. Exact situation. So we understand how to get ourselves out of this challenging times. Number one, we have experience in it. Two, there are two sides of the equation, debt and GDP. And if you look at it, we are probably the only political party in India that said that we'll create 20 lakh jobs in 5 years. And that's our first promise that we've made to our citizens. So anyone who's going to create jobs is going to get a red carpet. And that's how we can kickstart the entire economy that is sort of stalled. I believe both welfare and development go hand in hand. The fruits of the development should go back to welfare. And welfare should be fueled by debt. The past government did welfare fueled by debt. And that's what created this entire challenge. Inflation went up. We had various other challenges. So in the next 2 years, you'll see that equation now setting back again, where the fruits of development will actually, fuel the entire welfare.
So you think a new state like yours will be able to grow enough to be able to fund the rising welfare bill?
Absolutely. We've done it in the past and we'll do it all over again.
Okay, let me talk a little bit about your department. We believe recently the floods that affected Vijayawada, and you had this interesting situation where private companies, startups sort of crowded in, built a sandbox, as you said, and helped you with drone technology. Tell us a little bit more about how that helped identify the people who were in need, the people who needed to be rescued, the people who needed, food and water and so on.
If you look at it, the floods that we had in Vijayawada was once in 248-year event. So definitely no one was ready for it. Okay. It really caught everyone off guard. It was a flash flood. In greater parts of the city, there's more than 6 feet of water. So the entire area was inundated. So we used things like drones. I wouldn't say that we mastered it, but we actually started piloting it. We had only 40 drones available in our state. We got all 40 and we started delivering food, and we learned that we can do this much better. So we delivered close to, I think, about 50,000 families we delivered through the drones. Of course, we've used the traditional methods of helicopters and dropping in food, but we've used this technology and we understand it better now. Come next time we have any crisis, number one. Number two, we took all the imagery, all the topographical maps. We created a sandbox and we offered it to engineering students and the best institutions in India and in Andhra Pradesh to have them work on it and give us suggestions on how to improve, understand which are the houses that are really inundated, how do we give compensation. So imagine 15 days after the flood, we dispersed close to 650 crores of rehabilitation funds. I mean, no other state has done it in India's history, but we were able to do it because we had the technology in place. It was powered by young students, a lot of ideas coming in from them, and they enabled us to do the entire sandboxing. Even things like repairs. We worked with the gig economy, the various unicorns of India, to say, onboard more and more people of your AC mechanics, your bike mechanics, your TV repair guys, so that they're ready for the citizens when they come on platform. And we give incentives to do that. And so that's how dynamically we've worked.
I do want to ask you, because you'd got into a bit of a Twitter sparring with one of your counterparts from Karnataka when this whole business about private sector reservations came into the news. Do you believe firmly as a government representative, minister in charge of IT, that reservation should be kept out of the private sector, particularly in the IT industry?
I believe that it won't work.
Why?
The policy never worked. See, if a person is coming and investing in Andhra Pradesh, the single reason he's doing that is looking at the talent we already have, the talent pool we already have. But there will be areas that we don't have. Now, let's take manufacturing, right? Let's take electronics manufacturing to that case. In my first term as IT electronics minister, managerial level, we didn't have talent. We didn't have workforce. While the line workers, we were able to train, the managerial workforce we didn't have. So we obviously have to get that expertise from different parts of the state. Once you come up with ratios, either horizontal or vertical, and say that, you have to have so many people, then industry is not going to thrive. So anyone who's looking at Andhra Pradesh is looking at the government and looking at the talent that we have. So I don't believe that's the right way for the nation, in fact.
But tell us, because there's so much focus on jobs, or the lack of creation of jobs, it was in fact even a big issue in the 2024 Lok Sabha election. What would you say to those people that all of this is actually not creating the kind of jobs that are required? You need 2 million jobs every half year is what we're being told. You're not able to create that kind of jobs with the modern day economy. In fact, you're only creating less and less.
I think as a state, I can't speak for the nation, but as a state, I think we need direction first and then velocity. The Honorable Chief Minister set the direction in terms of what we need to achieve. If you look at this, he spoke about it everywhere, saying that our singular focus is going to be job creation. So that sends a clear message to everyone, from the Chief Minister down to my Sarpanch, from the Principal Secretary to the CM or the Chief Secretary to the government, all the way down to the line functionary, saying that job creation is the single focus and don't come in the way of anyone who's creating jobs. See, the biggest cultural shift I think India needs is not to celebrate wealth, but celebrate industries and industrialists who create jobs. That's what other countries have done very well, and I think that's the fundamental shift we need to bring about. And that's one thing we want to spearhead in the state of Andhra Pradesh.
I do want to come to a couple of issues that have been in the news from your state and otherwise, and I'm sure you're expecting this around this whole Tirupati Ladoo controversy. The Supreme Court heard the matter. It's formed now a special SIT of its own. Some officials from your state police, some officials from the CBI. The court did raise some questions about the manner in which the state sort of jumped the gun on this issue. How would you speak to that?
It's not politics, it's actually governance. When the Chief Minister has a certain report on his desk, he is duty bound to explain it to his citizens. So if he keeps the report under wraps, then people will question him why he kept it under wraps. I think that's very unfair. So being as the head of the state, it was his responsibility to explain to people that this has come to his attention, and subsequently he formed a SIT. To that SIT, the Honorable Supreme Court has added 2 members from the CBI and 1 member to the FSSAI.
Yeah.
So it has never found fault for starting a SIT. So just to be clear on record.
Okay.
So in that way, I believe that we are accountable to our citizens, and anything that comes to our attention, we have to explain it to our citizens. And I think what we did was absolutely right.
I believe the court also said this in its order that the 2 cases were registered or the cases were discovered on the 6th and the 12th of July, and yet Mr. Naidu held a press conference about it on the 18th of September. Basically, the court was questioning the timing, saying you got the report in July, but why did you decide to go public on the 18th of September?
The report came to the executive officer of TTD, and then he needs to submit it to the government. So that has a certain process to be done. Once Mr. Naidu got the report, he explained it to the public.
Your political opponent, the former Chief Minister, has said that this is purely political in nature and that there was no merit in these allegations, and in any case, no adulterated ghee was used to make.
NDDB report is quite clear that there was adulteration. Anyway, now there is a SIT. The SIT will do its investigation now and submit a report soon. So I think everything will come out in front of the public.
What do you say to those people who say that this whole thing was politically motivated because you want to, A, conquer the Hindu vote bank, as it were, to try and also checkmate your ally, Mr. Pawan Kalyan, who was aggressively promoting Hindu causes, and establish Mr. Chandrababu Naidu as a more credible Hindu leader, also keeping in check your ally, the BJP, and its political ambitions in the state? How would you respond to that?
See, as a family, we are devout Hindus. As a political party, we have always been a secular party. So we believe that we need to carry everyone to develop a nation. And India has an amazing social fabric that we need to take forward. So I think it's very unfair to attribute anything for nothing but Mr. Naidu putting out facts. He is duty bound to put facts in front of people. He is not like other chief ministers or other ministers who might want to put it aside. No. He said, this is what I've come and it's important for me to explain it to the public. And he took that step and he explained it.
What do you make of the recent election results in Haryana and in Jammu and Kashmir? You think there's a momentum shift after the Haryana results in particular?
I think everyone is clear. India is clear. Job creation should be a single agenda. And now even the federal government, the central government is talking about it. Various state governments are talking about it. Of course, as a state, Andhra Pradesh, we want to lead it from the front. And definitely this will help us get things going.
So to that extent, when you say job creation is the most important thing, how would you see this whole thing about caste census? The Congress and Rahul Gandhi say caste census will lead to identifying who are the people who require jobs and therefore creating jobs.
See, caste census is important. Skill census is equally important. In Andhra Pradesh, we're doing the skill census, where we're getting all the data sets together. We're trying to identify what are the skill gaps of our citizens, what is the industry demand, where does the industry see the jobs heading, the future jobs going to be created, and what is the skill intervention we need to do. So we understand this entire ecosystem. And the skill census will enable us to do it. So I believe both are equally important. Absolutely.
And as I come to the concluding part, it's been over 100 days in this second term. This is the first time you're interacting with the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, leaders of the BJP. You're part of an official NDA now. How has it been interacting with Mr. Modi and his team?
I mean, it's always been an amazing experience. I mean, their commitment to the state and commitment to the nation cannot be questioned. There are always going to be issues that we will not agree upon, and these are things that we will sit across the table, discuss it and resolve it. That's the way I look at it. I believe strong states make strong nation, and I would love Andhra Pradesh to contribute to nation building. Saying that we are a young state, we are a bifurcated state, a capitalist state, there are certain commitments made to the state of Andhra Pradesh. In some form or the other, we would love those commitments to be delivered. It's a hand-holding for a year or two so that we can contribute back to India subsequently, like how we have done it with the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. And that's what we look at in terms of playing an important role in.
But that special package that you're looking for, or that special status that you're looking for, nothing has come to pass in that.
So there are various other dispensations. It could be the backward district development plan.
Mm-hmm.
It could be allocations with regards to the schedule 10, 11, 9, 10. The bifurcation of various corporations, that is still there. There's a special package dispensation. So we did get that for Amravati. If you noticed it in the budget, it was quite clearly there. So we will definitely get our what we believe is right for our state.
So you're satisfied with the progress of this alliance, and because many are saying that the Modi third term depends on Mr. Naidu and whether he is happy with the continuance of this alliance.
See, our support to NDA was pre-election. Mm-hmm. We walked into India unconditionally. We continue to support NDA and the Honorable Prime Minister unconditionally. For the single reason, we believe in his leadership. We believe in the direction that the nation is heading. And as a state, we believe we have a role to play. And we will play that role. So we will continue to support, but we're going to continue to give our opinion and our feedback on various subjects.
All right. Nara Lokesh, thank you very much for speaking with us here on CNN News.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Jai Hind.
At L'Oréal.
Zaka, big move this. Perhaps the strongest action that's been taken. And would you agree if we say that the relationship with Canada is at its all-time nadir?
Low. India has never withdrawn a Canadian High Commissioner or Indian High Commissioner in Canada ever before. So this is in that sense a very unprecedented step. And if you look at the MEA statement, it was on the basis of these baseless targeting of the Indian High Commissioner Sanjay Kumar Verma, who's been named as a person of interest. That is as good as saying that he's a suspect in a murder investigation, as well as other diplomats and officials in Canada. This was completely unacceptable to India, and therefore the Stuart Wheeler, who is the Charge d'Affaires, the highest ranking official of Canada available in Delhi at this time, was summoned to the MEA, and he was conveyed that, look, we are withdrawing our ambassador. It's a huge move, Anand, because the last time India withdrew its High Commissioner or ambassador from any country was in Pakistan. This was in 2019 after the abrogation of Article 370. Both countries had withdrawn their respective High Commissioners. Even at the height of the Devyani Khobrgade episode that was in 2013, where our diplomat had to be forcibly brought back, the High Commissioners were still very much active. The ambassadors were very much active. So recall of High Commissioners or ambassadors usually happens at a time when countries are at war with each other. So to that extent, and that too, recalling the High Commissioner of a Western country is a very unprecedented move. I think the government of India, basically the last straw was what happened in Vientiane. At the ASEAN summit just a few days ago, the Prime Minister was there, and there were these reports of Justin Trudeau meeting the Prime Minister, confronting him with new facts, so on and so forth. But fact of the matter is that he made those allegations way back in September of 2023, the Prime Minister of Canada, on the floor of the Canadian Parliament. It's been over a year, and there's been no material evidence that has been provided by the Canadian authorities to substantiate the allegations made by Justin
it is
Trudeau.
very interesting because the Canadian envoy there, the CDA, Zaka, just now is on record saying that we have submitted detailed evidences to showcase the connection of the Indian High Commission with these elements. That's what they are saying. They claim we have shown detailed evidences, whereas Bharat has said that no evidence has been so far produced, and these are just baseless charges. We've been asking year on year, give us actionable intelligence, and all that's been shared by Canada has been shared with some of the other Five Eyes nations, and there's nothing that's been shown which is concrete when these allegations are made. Ambassador J.K. Tripathi is with us. Ambassador Tripathi, how would you see this big step? Zaka was saying after Pakistan, other than Pakistan, this step has not been taken with any other nation. So is this an
Yes, you are correct. But this Canadian allegation to Indian High Commissioner there in Ottawa is completely uncalled for and completely unacceptable. I mean, no High Commissioner, not at least from India, no Indian High Commissioner or ambassador can put his reputation or his country's reputation at stake by being involved in somebody's case. This is atrocious, and we had been shouting from the rooftop for last more than 1 year that okay, give us evidence, and now after 1 year they come up and say that here is the evidence, which is nothing. So this is, I think this is very good step by Indian government. And next will be that Canadian High Commissioner will also be issued marching orders.
Well, but what does this imply, Ambassador Tripathi? What does this mean?
No, it certainly implies deterioration of the bilateral relations.
And
because you know, this is the first step is to downgrade the relations by recalling the ambassador or high commissioner. So this is the first stage where Pakistan is also there. With Pakistan also we don't have high commissioner here. They don't have our high commissioner there. Only CDA is one. Same thing is going to happen here. So this is just to show that look, we will not tolerate any unfounded allegation against our people just because some terrorist in your country had been killed. And that too, terrorist is not Canadian citizen. He had Canadian permanent residence, not Canadian citizenship. And he was involved in it is a well-known secret that the Sikh people, extremist people, they are there in the government and they are there targeting Indian government, Indian officials. And despite this, Canadian government didn't do anything, whereas Article 5 of Canadian Constitution clearly says that Canada has to any diplomatic representative of any other country in Canada will have the immunity, and will have not only that, and any attack on any diplomat in Canada will be considered to be an attack on the sending country by Canada.
correct.
Despite this, Canadians.
Interesting you state Article 5 because that doesn't seem to be applicable to Bharat at all as far as Justin Trudeau-led government is concerned. But Ambassador Tripathi, my final question is, do you see this purely politics, internal politics and Trudeau's compulsion because he's got to bow down to the NDP and some of these elements, secessionist elements who have now embedded themselves in Canadian politics, or is there more to it? Are there other nations among the Five Eyes who are involved, who are encouraging Canada and Trudeau to do this?
I do think other nations are encouraging other nations of Five Eyes, that is New Zealand, Australia, US and UK. They besides Kannada, I do think they are doing this, but Kannada is concocting stories without giving any concrete evidences. And you are right, absolutely, you hit the point when you said that because he is losing, Trudeau has lost his majority and he wants to cling to power, he wants to
Viewers, look at the pictures on your screens. Hail of stones is not pelting down upon the followers of Durga in Bangladesh, but in our own, very own Bharat. To be precise, in Bahraich, Uttar Pradesh and Belgavi in Karnataka. But these scenes could very well be from Bangladesh, viewers. Last evening, these Hindu devotees carrying the Durga idol, which was set for immersion, as it is the custom, were both caught up in fiery confrontations. As the processions made their way past a mosque in a locality where, according to the police, the Muslim population exceeds the Hindu population, several inmates began to object to what they called was, quote, provocative DJ music, unquote. While in Belgavi, the confrontation was brought under control. In Bahraich, things spiraled out of hand. In Bahraich, according to the police, the confrontation turned ugly because the stones were pelted on the gathered Durga devotees from a property near the mosque after they refused to stop the DJ music. In the ensuing mayhem, some were seriously injured. This is a shocking overreaction and certainly not to be justified in a secular democracy. It is only in Islamic republics, theocracies, where people are pelted stones or end up paying for their lives for allegedly upsetting religious sensitivities. If this kind of violence, viewers, is normalized, they will be held to pay. Every procession, every call to prayer would be deemed objectionable. And there would be or could be violent demands to stop or face the consequences. Anyway, viewers, back to Bahraich. Once attacked for playing loud music, the devotees then also, according to the police, retaliated. One among them, a youth called Gopal Mishra, then ran into the property from where UP administration said the stones were hurled. There, goaded on by several devotees, Mishra yanked off a green-colored flag. The act was deemed provocative, and the police say that the Hindu devotees were then shot dead by some members of the minority community. This particular devotee, viewers, was shot dead. The killing triggered mayhem on a large scale in Bahraich. Hindus went on a rampage in protest over the perceived overreaction. Curfew was imposed and the UP police swung into action to control the outbreak of arson and rioting. The facts, viewers, are on your screens. This was an incident that turned very quickly from a profession into a provocation and then into large-scale violence.